It's time to cook up some last minute NFL trades before free agency. There's been players earlier today cut left and right. We heard Myles Garrett re-sign with the Browns out of absolutely nowhere like an RKO. But there might be a trade out of absolutely nowhere before free agency. So that's why I'm here. We have 5 or 6 trades to discuss some potential trade packages for the biggest names on the trade block. So welcome to Bleacher Report. I'm Mitch. Hop in the comments. Let me know how you guys feel about these trades and specifically the landing spots for the trades. Let's begin. You guys know how this works. I'm throwing out a trade package for a player. Let's begin with the player that I think I'm most captivated by when it comes to a trade possibility, because Trey Hendrickson is the NFL's leading sacker. He is the NFL's best sack artist with 34 plus sacks over the last 2 seasons. He's been an absolute demon off the edge the last few years for the Cincinnati Bengals. Huge part in why they made the Super Bowl in 2021. Their best defensive player over the last few years. And he is going to be a huge addition to any defense and potentially change the pass rush for any team that acquires him. So the question is, who will acquire Trey Hendrickson, the NFL's leading sacker? I'm going with the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are going to make another trade. They've already traded for Deebo Samuel, but why not upgrade the defensive side of the football where their real weakness lies? Dan Quinn loves his pass rushers, right? He needs a guy that offensive lines need to double team, need to pay attention to. We saw what he could do with Micah Parsons in Dallas. Could he use Trey Hendrickson to make his entire defense around that football player much, much better? And this is a player where it makes sense to go to a place where, okay, Dante Fowler's a free agent, the guy that had 10.5 sacks last year. They released Jonathan Allen at defensive tackle, probably their 2 best pure pass rushers from 2024. 3 of their 4 edge rushers, everyone not named Dorrance Armstrong, is a free agent. Okay, so they have plenty of cap space to work with. The biggest need on their team is probably a difference-making defender. And I really feel like they can't get better than what they did last year unless they add this type of player. And let's be honest, there really isn't that type of player in free agency. There's some good players, right? You could bring in an older Khalil Mack and that would be satisfying, but Trey Hendrickson is in the prime of his career. He's in the same lane as TJ Watt and Myles Garrett in terms of production in recent years. So get him for a 3rd round pick. I understand he's 30 years old, which is also where people are going to be like, Trey Hendrickson for a 3rd round pick? The Bengals are idiots. You guys have to understand Hendrickson's going to get a big contract. He is 30 years old, and I think the Bengals could buy into the fact that maybe his best production is behind him. He's also, at times, not been the most reliable run defender, but in Dan Quinn's system, I really think he just wants guys that can pin their ears back on the edge and get to it. I think that's why Dante Fowler has worked so well. And I feel like that type of difference maker, a guy where if Jaden Daniels gets you the lead, if the Commanders are controlling the game through their offense, they're going to need a player to come off the edge and close out games, to get sacks on 3rd down, to force turnovers, to get pressure, right? That type of difference-making player to complement a really awesome offense is exactly what works in really any generation in the NFL. You just need a guy that can get to it, force a fumble, force a key pressure that ends up in an interception, something like that. And Trey Hendrickson can certainly do that. I also love his motor. I love his attitude. I think all those things fit the culture that the Commanders are building. He's one of the hardest working defenders on a weekly basis from just a pure snap count standpoint. You watch this guy play and his motor never, ever ends. So he is relentless. I love that addition for the Commanders if it does happen. There are many teams that could use Trey Hendrickson. This was just one of them that I thought of that could benefit the most, especially given the state of their defensive line, okay? The next trade we're going to discuss is DK Metcalf. Everybody knows DK Metcalf's on the trade block. This is not shocking news, okay? The Seattle Seahawks, I don't know what they're doing, but DK Metcalf wants out. So the question is, where is he going to go? I'm going to give you a little bit of a shocking place, okay? A landing spot that I don't think you see coming, but I think it has many connections to DK Metcalf. That is the Carolina Panthers, okay? I'm going to go DK Metcalf gets traded for a 2025 second round pick to the Carolina Panthers. I could have went with the easy answer and said the Patriots. I could have went with maybe a more compelling answer with the Packers or the Chargers, right? Those teams definitely could make this work. But the Carolina Panthers are really interesting for DK Metcalf because if you look at their offense, Bryce Young is the quarterback they're believing in for the future. Their offensive line is intact and they don't need anything this offseason. They could use an upgrade at tight end, but they do have complementary receivers already inside their depth chart, right? They've got a young guy like Leggett, who they loved in the draft and showed some flashes last year. Adam Thielen, ageless in the slot. Jalen Coker is more of a 3 or a 4, but he's a promising young player as well. And they have a really underrated running back in Hubbard. So if you look at the infrastructure of their offense, the only thing they're missing is a perimeter wide receiver that can burn defenses and make big plays. And when you think of Dave Canales, their coach, he was in Seattle from 2010 through 2022. 2010 through 2022. That's a long time he was in Seattle. So he has great ties to Seattle's organization. He was their quarterback coach for Russell Wilson and Geno Smith. He was the passing game coordinator there when DK Metcalf was there. And he was a wide receiver coach at one time. So he worked with DK Metcalf. He understood what makes him tick. He understood the production that he had at his peak with Russell Wilson. And I feel like he could put that player in his offense in Carolina in what we saw like Mike Evans do in Tampa Bay, right? That perimeter wide receiver that's going to be the big play guy, the red zone guy, the vertical player. And Metcalf could really change the perspective of the Panthers. He could take them from an interesting team to a really, really compelling divisional threat in the NFC South. Because I think you're looking at the NFC South and the Saints are kind of halfway through a rebuild sort of deal. They're trying to kind of figure things out. The Falcons have a rookie quarterback. The Bucs are the only team standing in the way of the Panthers' promise this year. So I think that Metcalf is the type of move the Panthers need to make. I think defensively, they need to add a bunch. We know this. But a wide receiver is high on the priority list for the Panthers. So I think this is a sneaky destination for DK Metcalf. It's also fairly warm weather. That's what he kind of wanted, right? It's not LA, so to speak, in the big bright lights, but Carolina's not bad. I mean, it's not Green Bay or New England. And it's also a place where you could see yourself, at least there's a connection to a coach that you probably like, I would assume. And then at the same time, you could see yourself in that division being successful if you can buy into Bryce Young if you're DK. I don't think DK can be so picky and choosy because I only feel like there's 3 or 4 teams that are really in the conversation. So let me know what you guys think in the chat about this move. DK for Cup. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry, bro. That's not going to happen. But 2025 second round pick was the trade. I think DK will get traded for a pretty high second round pick. I would probably put that in the discussion for the trade. The Panthers definitely need to upgrade their team, man. There's no question about it. No question about it. I think wide receiver is the wide receiver 1, to be more specific. Big X wide receiver, speeder down the field is DK Metcalf. DK to the Panthers is super funny. Is it funny? I feel like it could happen, man. Like I said, I could have said the Packers. I could have said the Chargers. I could have said the Patriots. All those places could definitely go for DK Metcalf. Maybe even the Raiders. They just made a move, though. But I think this move is kind of outside the box. Wilson going back to Seattle, that would be funny. We think Lockett to the Raiders. That's possible. I kind of, like if DK doesn't land in Carolina, I think Lockett could. I mean, there's connections. Lockett could also maybe go to wherever Russ goes. Like, let's say Russ signs with the Jets or the Giants. Lockett could go there too. Hendrickson to Philly. Don't know if they can afford him, to be honest. Or if they would really want to. DK to Atlanta. I don't know if that's really what they need. I think they need to focus on the defense, bro. All right, let's get to the next trade. Thank you guys for the comments. Cooper Kupp, somebody brought him up in the chat. I think there is a destination for Cooper Kupp that hasn't been talked enough about this offseason, and that is due to Liam Cohen becoming the new head coach of Jacksonville. I like Cooper Kupp potentially being traded to Jacksonville. And let's say he doesn't get traded. I could see him signing with Jacksonville, okay? And I actually think he'll probably end up being released and signed. That's why I have it only for a 6th-round pick, because basically the Rams have said they would release him anyways. So I don't really know why a team would trade for him unless they're desperate like the Texans were for Christian Kirk. Hey, we'll throw you a 7th-round pick. We know you're going to release him anyways. So Jacksonville could throw a 6th-round pick out there for the veteran wide receiver. This is also ties to the coaching staff, okay? So Liam Cohen was with the Rams in 2018, 19, 20, and 22. He was the assistant wide receiver coach in 2020. So the only season Liam Cohen has not been in LA when Cooper Kupp was in LA was 2021 and 2023. So his best season and his worst season. Okay, so he helped him rise to prominence in the NFL. He obviously was big in terms of that Rams wide receiver room. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks, all those guys rising to prominence, right? And that offense with Jared Goff and then Matthew Stafford. So Liam Cohen has connections to the Rams, obviously. He's a Ram guy. They run a similar offense to the Rams. That's something you have to look for with a veteran player because they don't want to have to retool and relearn everything they know and have to, Cooper Kupp doesn't want to go to the Patriots and learn Josh McDaniels' offense. He wants to be able to stay in, some sort of offense where he feels comfortable and he knows how he's going to be utilized. Right. So if Chris Godwin does not go to Jacksonville, which many might think that could happen, Cooper Kupp makes a lot of sense because I think he'll be available for cheap. I think Christian Kirk was released. So Jacksonville clearly is looking for a new slot receiver. I don't think Parker Washington is going to satisfy Trevor Lawrence. As much as Parker Washington's kind of interesting and intriguing as a depth receiver, I don't think he's a go-to player. So a Cooper Kupp would be actually a perfect complement to Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. being, in my opinion, a future top 10 receiver in the NFL, if he's not already, to be honest. He's quick, he's fast, he's electric, right? He's a great perimeter player. For Cooper Kupp, he could work that inside area of the field, be involved in the screen game. He's a good blocker. He's feisty. He's a great leader. He's a tone setter. He's a culture guy. He's a guy that you can bring to Jacksonville and you can point at and say, that's how hard a professional works. That's a former Triple Crown winner. That's a Super Bowl MVP. That's a guy that you want to model yourself after if you're Brian Thomas, if you're Trevor Lawrence, if you're the younger players in Jacksonville, right? So for a lot of different reasons, I feel like that would make a lot of sense, whether it be a signing or a trade. I don't think he's actually going to get traded, but I do feel like Cooper Kupp makes a lot of sense to Jacksonville regardless. And like I said, these are last minute trades. So if it happens, it might happen right before free agency. Jacksonville's like, we're going to sign Cooper Kupp anyways. Let's just go trade for him. Let's just go get him. All right, so Cooper Kupp to the Jags. Boza to the Niners. That won't be a trade. It would be a signing, but yes, I think that's going to happen. Maybe New England to help the second-year quarterback. The reason I would say New England is possible is because Cooper Kupp and Kendrick Bourne are like best friends. That could be a reason. But that's like the only reason, to be honest. I do think if Cooper Kupp hits the market, maybe New England will throw a bunch of money at him. That's possible. But I think New England's looking for more of a number one wide receiver, whether it be DK Metcalf, Brandon Ayuk, somebody like that, if they're going to be traded. Maybe, AJ Brown, Mike Vrabel's buddy, if he ever pops up, they could spend their first pick on a receiver like McMillan. I think they're looking for that type of player. I still feel like, just from a Patriots fan's perspective, I still feel like there's a lot of confidence in a guy like Demario Douglas in New England to operate the slot position. I could be wrong, though. Chris Godwin is another one that could go to New England, and I wouldn't be surprised by that. I could see them liking that type of player. Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels, he kind of gives me Edelman vibes. His game is very, very similar to Edelman's. Chris Godwin's been one of my favorite players in the NFL, too, so that would be awesome. Next, we've got a one that I had to add late. All right. So I don't have like a true like connection for this one, but we're going to give the best possible explanation for why this would happen. Because I was going to put Myles Garrett in this video, guys, but Myles Garrett all of a sudden said, "How much money did you offer?" Wait, you said 40 million? No, just so I'm checking. You didn't say 38. You said 40? Okay, I'll come back. That's fine. All right. So the next trade is Kyle Pitts to the Denver Broncos. Yes, so the Denver Broncos have been searching for their joker player. Their joker, right? This is what we've been hearing from Sean Payton the last couple of years. They need a guy that can move around, a guy that they can utilize in the slot at tight end. They can, do a bunch of different things with him. And Kyle Pitts is clearly expendable. Kyle Pitts is on his 5th-year option. So you get $10 million for Kyle Pitts this year is basically the contract, $10 million. Okay. The Broncos need a tight end. That's 1. They need a joker. That's 2. And if any offensive coach in the NFL can figure out how to use Kyle Pitts, it's probably the guy that utilized Jimmy Graham to become one of the best tight ends we've ever seen, right? It's probably the guy that is one of the best offensive coaches of his generation, Sean Payton, right? And it's in an offense that's RPO-centric, that has a deceptive quarterback in Bo Nix that can shoot the vertical ball down the middle of the field. Kyle Pitts would fit right in there. So I feel like this would be a great fit for Kyle Pitts to potentially rejuvenate his career or even get it kickstarted. It feels like it's been an up and down roller coaster for him. He had an excellent rookie season, had over 1,000 yards. The last few years, though, have been very frustrating. It's been good. It's been bad. It's been And you look at the talent and he's got the speed. He may have lost a little bit in terms of agility and change of direction due to the knee injury, but I feel like the vertical game is there. The ability to play him at wide receiver, tight end, slot will be compelling to any great offensive coach, which Sean Payton certainly is. There's too many Seans in the NFL, bro. But I've got it for a 5th-round pick. It's kind of random. I'm not really sure. I do think it would be a day 3 pick, whether it be a 5th, a 6th. I don't think it would be a 7th. I think that would be a little crazy, but I feel like a 5th or a 6th, Atlanta could move on. They could reset their offense, so to speak. I never really felt like Kyle Pitts fit into that version of Atlanta last year. And I feel like because he was drafted by the previous regime, it's even more possible on his final year on his rookie contract, his 5th-year option, that he could be moved. So that's why I went with Kyle Pitts to the Broncos. Let me know what you guys think about that one in the chat. All right, next up, we have our 5th trade. Do you think Kirk to the Browns? Oh, boy! Kirk Cousins to the Cleveland Browns. Great comment. That's timely. Thank you. That's timely, man. Kirk Cousins to the Browns, a 2025 5th-round pick is going to be the trade as well. I think it would be, again, a late pick because the contract, I'm not exactly sure how they would work everything out, but hey, it looks like Cleveland wants to compete this year because they just said, Myles Garrett, how much do you want? We'll give it to you. How much? We're not sending you to Buffalo, pal. We're keeping you. So that being said, it makes me more confident that they're going to go after a veteran quarterback this year. Not a rookie, a veteran. At least that's how it feels. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they get Cam Ward, but Deshaun Watson is going to be gone eventually. They need a bridge option. Kirk Cousins makes perfect sense. Kevin Stefanski was the offensive coordinator for Minnesota in 2018 and 2019. Okay, so he has connections to Kirk Cousins. And not only does he have connections, this is the study of Mitch right here. The best passer rating of Kirk Cousins' career was in 2019. I bet you didn't know that. Okay? Kirk Cousins had the best passer rating of his career with Kevin Stefanski as his offensive coordinator. Last year, Kirk Cousins did not look like Kirk Cousins, unfortunately. The zip on the football was not really there. Now, the mental processing is still at a high level. His ability to understand offenses, his ability to get an offense settled, as we saw in that incredible comeback against the Eagles. I mean, Few run a 2-minute situation better. Few are more mature. Few are better in terms of just understanding football than Kirk Cousins. The question would be, does he still have it physically? Can he still get it done? Because he couldn't move. I mean, I remember the first few games, they had to just stick him in the pistol and he couldn't do anything. He couldn't move. He couldn't like extend himself to do anything. And his arm was shot. He had no power on his ball. So the hope would be that you're getting Kirk Cousins motivated in an offense that he's familiar with, that he's successful in. He's cheap because another team's paying for him. And then lastly, the torn Achilles is more recovered. He has a little bit more movement. Perhaps he's worked on his lower body strength, and his strength in his legs can help him push the ball a bit better in 2025. So that is kind of the hope. Kirk to Vegas is not going to happen. They just got Geno Smith. Pittsburgh, that's possible. I think Pittsburgh is a low-key possible spot if they want to go in a different direction from, a guy like Justin Fields, who feels like that's going to be the place they go. Although I think they should go for Aaron Rodgers. That's just my opinion. But I think Kirk Cousins could be the guy. The only thing I'd be aware of with Kirk is the weather in Pittsburgh. I think Kirk and Cleveland, I guess, is also a bad spot for that. But that would be something that would concern me because of his arm strength right now. I think the best places for him to go would be in a dome or like a warm weather city. But I don't know if he can be so choosy. Watson is not good. No, Watson is terrible, bro. I'm with you. He's absolutely disgustingly bad. There's no question. It's not just the off the field. He's really bad. Really bad. He's like the worst quarterback in the league. So, they'll be fine. Eventually, the Browns. I just love that jersey of that one Cleveland fan that has like 30 names on his jersey of all the quarterbacks that have been there. They can add Kirk Cousins to the list, okay? And the final trade, you guys think that was the last trade, but you're wrong. Okay? You don't tune out. We've got one more trade. It's a bonus. And his name is Brandon Ayuk. Yes, a shocker. He's going to be sent to my New England Patriots. Probably not, but a man can dream, okay? The 2025 second-round pick for Brandon Ayuk. Now, let's break it down why this could happen. 1, the Patriots need a wide receiver more than I need air. 2, Drake May needs a number 1 wide receiver. That's also reason number 1. 3, I feel like he fits Josh McDaniels' offense because he is a versatile receiver. He can play inside, outside. He's a crafty route runner, but he does have vertical speed to burn you over the top, which fits the outside receiver position. He's still pretty young. He's not that old. I think he's 26 off the top of my head, maybe 27. Okay. So it fits the lineage, the timeline. That's the right word for Drake May. And then when you look back to last year for Brandon Ayuk, when Ayuk and the Niners were in discussions for the contract last offseason, the Patriots offered a trade package and a contract that, get this, was better than any other team in the NFL. But Brandon Ayuk said, I don't care if I'm getting $32 million a year, which was the reported amount that he was going to get from New England, which is more than he got in San Francisco. But he said, I don't know who your quarterback is. I don't know if Drake May is any good. But now if he studied the tape and he knows ball, he probably watched Drake May and he said, oh, I can cook with that guy. So I feel like Brandon Ayuk, Drake May, that'd be a pretty slick combination. And I think Ayuk would be a better fit than DK Metcalf in the Patriots offense. Because like I said, I think he's a more refined route runner. He's got a deeper route tree. I feel like with Ayuk, you could put him in the slot and have him run the option routes. I feel like with Ayuk on the outside, you could have him run the vertical routes. Like, he is really talented. I don't think people realize how good Ayuk is at his peak. Last year, started slow, coming back from the holdout. Got injured, he was just starting to cook, right? He was just starting to get going and he got injured. So that was unfortunate, but you could potentially get him a little cheaper for a second round pick now instead of what you could have got him last offseason because he is coming off an injury. The Patriots clearly have the money to throw at him, even if they're overspending. They can clearly even add to his contract, if not just take the contract he already had, maybe even add some incentives to it, whatever they want to do. But this to me would be the best fit. And I've heard consistently from like numerous sources that the Patriots like Brandon Ayuk. Numerous. I think this is an Elliott Wolf thing. I think this is also a Josh McDaniels thing in Brandon Ayuk. So I could see him landing in New England if he does get traded. Right? They already traded Debo. So the likeliness of them trading 2 receivers in one offseason, that's why it's the bonus trade. It's in red. That's why it's in red. Because I don't know. They already traded Debo. Could it still happen, though? It could still happen. Maybe the Niners want to just completely reset some of their books for the future. And they're going to sign Joey Bosa. They're going to sign Devontae Adams. And they're going to try to go for like short-term, long-term type deal. Maybe. I don't know what the Niners are thinking. You missed the trade. I missed that, bro. I'm sorry. You missed the Trey Hendrickson to Washington. I'm not exactly sure what the question was. But just to reiterate, I think that it's their biggest need. 3 out of their 4 players on their depth chart are free agents, including Dante Fowler, who had 10.5 sacks. Hendrickson's arguably the best pass rusher in the NFL. They covet that position. Both Peters in the general manager spot, who's a San Francisco guy, right? And then also Dan Quinn. And then the contract, they would have to give him a decent amount of money, but I don't think it would be anywhere near Myles Garrett because he's 30 years old. I think it would be a nice top end of the market deal. I don't think it would be a Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons type of contract. I don't think so. And it would probably be like a 2 or 3 year deal if they were to do something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't gone too far into the weeds with that, but Washington has a lot of money and they're in the contending window, so they might as well go and get a player like that right now. It makes perfect sense for their biggest need on their team. So I think that's it. Just waiting for more. 27 for 2 years. That's possible. That's possible. Seeing if there's more comments. All right. Thanks, guys, for watching. Appreciate it. I'm Mitch. You can subscribe to me on YouTube, The Bottom Line View. I will be here during free agency week every day, probably. So make sure to tune in to all the free agency stuff. I know Bleacher Report has a lot of great stuff planned. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. We'll see you next time. Peace.